Most lifters waste years throwing random back exercises together and hoping for growth. I'm going to cut through the noise with the 4 essential exercise types that built my back and how to pick the right ones for yours. I'm Faz, a coach who's been training for 3 decades and coaching naturals for over a decade. I've helped hundreds of guys add size to their backs without chasing junk volume or fluff by focusing on movements that deliver the most growth for the effort they put in. And stick around because near the end I'll be sharing the 2 biggest mistakes that people make with back training. If you've been training hard for a while but your back still looks flat from the side, one of those 2 issues is almost certainly the reason. Now, to start this video off, I'm going to cover just some basic back anatomy, and we're specifically focusing on the muscles of the upper back to the exclusion of the lower back today. The back isn't just one single muscle, it's a combination of muscle groups working together. The lats are the big sweeping muscles which give your back width, running from under your armpits down to your hips. The traps, they span the 3 sections, the upper, the middle and the lower traps, right from the upper part of your back right down to the mid part. And the rhomboids sit underneath the traps, adding thickness between the shoulders. The teres major and minor are smaller muscles near the armpit that help with pulling and rotation, adding detail and size to the upper back. Now, because these muscles overlap in function, thinking in terms of exercise categories rather than just individual lifts is the best way to ensure you're training the entire back effectively. And one more thing before we start, always use straps. Grip should never ever be your limiting factor. Back in the early days of the internet, I remember there used to be kind of gatekeeping BS which said if you can't hold on to it, you don't deserve to lift it. It's absolute nonsense. Don't let your grip hold you back. Wear straps on any heavy pulling exercise you do. Now, we're going to kick this off by looking at the first exercise category, which is pull downs and pull up variations. And just to say from the off, these train the entire upper back and lat area. Some variations will emphasize one over the other. Now, just to back my point up, there was a study in 2013 by Leslie and Comfort. They basically found that varying grip widths within a reasonable range did not dramatically affect lat activation. In fact, from what I've seen, wider grips will typically employ a greater amount of upper back activation. That is, the muscles of the traps, the teres and the rhomboids, and a closer or underhand grip will typically be more lat involvement, relatively speaking, compared to the rest of the upper back. So in practice, what this means for you is that both wide and narrow build the lats. However, the wider grip will favor the smaller muscles of the upper back more, which may give you that illusion of the wide back. Now, in terms of my top variations, I generally like wider grip pull downs of all variations on different machines. I'm also a fan of weighted pull-ups, and that will be with a closer to neutral grip or even slightly underhand. Now, in terms of cues for pull downs, what you want to try and visualize is your elbows pulling down into your pockets. That's the idea, like this or like this. And also keep your torso braced and your spine neutral. If you extend your spine on the way up, you're not actually causing your lats to experience more of a stretch. If you keep your spine neutral, then your lats can actually stretch as your arm goes up. That's the way to do it. And I wanted to say that because that's a fairly common mistake that I see, which mostly comes from some fairly influential influencers in the space over the last 15 years. Right, so the next exercise category that I want to discuss is rows. Okay, this is also a full upper back and lat movement, but typically it has a bit more upper back emphasis than pull downs. There was a study by Udas in 2016 which essentially said that the row produces very high activation of the lats as well as the upper, middle and lower traps. So generally speaking, when it comes to rows, you're going to get that little bit more preferential upper back growth than you would do with the equivalent pull downs. Now, before I go on to my favorite variations and my cues, I want to just touch on why I generally don't like bent over rows. So for most people, your stability will limit your output. If you're trying to go all out with your upper back, generally speaking, your lower back is going to give out first, or you're going to actively use your lower back to take stress off the upper back. Now, most people will cheat way too early, and there are better, safer ways to load with your chest in a supported position. Also, in terms of just programming overlap, most people will place the bent over row on upper days, whether it's on an upper lower or push-pull legs or whatever else. Now, that can be a little bit too much added volume for the lower back, especially if you're training your lower back either the next day or later in the week. The total needs to be taken into account, and it isn't normally. So I generally just prefer separating it out altogether. And when I was a powerlifter, what I mostly did was lots of deadlifts and lots of either chest supported rows or pull-ups and chin-ups. Now, in terms of my top variations now as a bodybuilder, I really like all manner of chest supported T-bar rows. Jim Lecco do a really good version. I've seen one done by Atlantis as well. As well as that, I like these seated machine rows. Any kind of seated chest supported machine row, like a prime row, a hammer strength row, they're all pretty good. Also, the classic cable row works really well. Still nothing wrong with that. Now, in terms of cues, I would ask you to pull your elbows kind of behind your body, like drive them behind your body. That's what you should be visualizing. You might not get like way back, but you want to try and visualize your elbows leading the pull rather than your hands. Kind of try and visualize like dragging the weight rather than lifting it, as if you were dragging a sled or something across some snow. Drag the weight rather than lift it back. And at this point, I think it's a great time to mention the sponsor of the video, that is BoostCamp. Now, all of this is programmed into my BoostCamp plans, including the Jacked Intellectual, which is now a 4 and 5 day program. Everything's structured by rep range and exercise category, so you always know what you're actually targeting. You can use my code Fazlifts for a free 2-week premium trial. Try those programs, give them a good run, and get some good results. Right, going on to the next category, we've got single arm movements. Over time, I've become a big believer of single arm movements, more for late stage intermediate to advanced individuals, because bilateral work at some point just no longer hits both sides evenly. You need to isolate to prevent asymmetries. As you get stronger and stronger, what will typically happen is one side will be stronger than the other. Now, in bilateral movements, that side will always take up more of the load, whether you intend to or not. And as a result, what happens is it gets better stimulus, it grows better, and essentially the strong gets stronger and the weak stay stagnant. And that's the problem with bilateral movement. So you want to add in some limited amount of unilateral movements across the back at least once a week. It doesn't have to be everything, but it should be there. My personal preference is to include one unilateral movement once a week. Also, the other reason for including single arm work is the bilateral deficit. It means that you can usually train harder, relatively speaking, with single limb movement. So it's wise to employ that as a strategy, especially when you're advanced or late stage intermediate, for maximum growth and really eking out the most growth. In fact, if you're doing a specialization phase, you should be including some unilateral movements for that body part for sure, to enable you to train it at the hardest level. Now, in terms of my top variations, I still like the classic dumbbell row with a bench support. So kind of an incline bench, elbow support, and nice and strict. I also like any kind of machine single arm pull downs or rows, really driving the elbow either down for a pull down or back for a row. With rows, I like the arm, which is non-working, to support me on the machine and just pull back like this. Great variations. In terms of cues, really look at getting that elbow right back and let the lat fully stretch between reps. Don't rush and don't overarch your spine to accommodate more range of motion. Now, the fourth exercise category I want to speak about is shrugs, particularly Kelso shrugs. Now, I've been doing Kelso shrugs for over 20 years. It was a part of my routine back in the early days. I started preaching about them in the early days of YouTube in 2021, when barely anyone else was talking about them. I'm not saying I popularized them, but I know for a fact very few people were talking about them before I did in 2021, and then all of a sudden people started to catch on. And I will say something that I found very disrespectful recently was Jeff Nippard. He pretended to invent them. He made an exercise, he gave it a name, he didn't mention the name Paul Kelso, and I found that to be very disrespectful to the memory of Paul Kelso, who pioneered this technique. Disappointing by Nippard, but anyway. Now, in terms of when to include this in your program, if you can Kelso shrug less than you row on the equivalent machine, you probably need them. So I'll give you an example. My training partners, generally speaking, they can row about 5 plates on the prime row, but they can only Kelso shrug about 2 plates. So that's a definite large scale weakness. So if you find yourself doing Kelso shrugs and you can't help but bend your arms and shrug up, you need Kelso shrugs. Now, me, on the other hand, I can Kelso shrug more than I can row on the equivalent machine. So for me, they're less essential. In fact, I no longer program them for now. I might add them back in at some point in the future. Now, in terms of my top variations, as of now, I almost always do them on some kind of chest supported row. So that works really well. I would say another good option is on a cable row. And finally, for you guys at home, you can just do this on an incline bench with either dumbbells or barbells. They're all good variations. Now, in terms of cues, a couple of things to point out. Have your elbows pointed out like this, not down. You must ensure the movement comes from your scapula, not your elbows. So if your elbows are down like this and you're shrugging up and you're bending your arms, no bueno. You want to try and get to the point where you're able to shrug back, elbows out, and keep your shoulders down. Move the scapula, not the arms. Right now, we're at the best part of the video, which is common mistakes. I promised you at the beginning I would share with you two of the most common mistakes that I see when it comes to back training, and here they are. First of all, too much volume, and I'm going to jokingly blame natural hypertrophy for this one, because due to his gentleman split, I had to field any number of questions about training the back every day of the week for an insane amount of volume. When I looked at the videos, it was just piss poor intensity every single time. So, Frenchman, I'm blaming you for that one. You owe me one. Now, what I saw was people were just cranking up the volume, just trying to accommodate as much volume as possible. The intensity went down the tubes because they were just besotted with the volume and the frequency. And so as a result, they were training in survival mode. Junk sets just skyrocketed and tendon issues and burnout became very commonplace. So here's your fix for that one. Prioritize intensity, not volume, not frequency. Match your volume to your intensity, not the other way around. Don't set your volume and then train in survival mode, just trying to hang on for dear life. That shouldn't be the case for back training, and it shouldn't be the case for anything else either. All right, so that's the first problem. Now, the second problem is cheating the wrong way. Some cheating is intentional and beneficial. Like, for example, if you look at GVS, he cheats to increase tension, not to avoid it. Ronnie did this, Jay did this. Now, Dorian didn't, because typically speaking, he used higher percentage of his 1 rep max. So he was already starting off with very intense reps. So generally, Dorian's form was that little bit more controlled. But it's a very common thing in bodybuilding to cheat to add more stress to the muscle. I think the problem is a lot of lifters see that, they see the pros and they see GVS, and they maybe cheat to make lifts easier. Like, for example, if you're rowing and you're pulling back with your row, well, all you're doing is allowing your lower back to take the load. That's not cheating to add stress to your muscle, that's cheating to take stress away and put it onto your lower back. You know, power builders often fall into this trap. They get really poor hypertrophy results from just swinging a weight around. The goal is just to move the weight, and what they get is constant injuries, no development, no nuance at all. They just don't understand what's happening. So when it comes to back training, cheat by all means, but cheat to add stress to the muscle, not to take it away. And just because you're feeling battered at the end of the session doesn't mean you had a good workout. You could just be tiring yourself out by throwing weights around. The bottom line is, if you're going to cheat, do it to place more load on the target muscle, not escape it. There's a nuance there that will escape the average power builder with room temperature IQ, but the rest of you, my audience, I know, will take full advantage of what I'm saying and learn from it. Now, I'll end by saying, if this gave you clarity on back training, you're definitely going to want to watch my video called The 4 Harsh Truths About Building Muscle Naturally. A link on the screen, so go watch that next if you're serious about not wasting the next 5 years. All right. And what I will say is, if you guys are still here at the end of the video, I just want to say a massive thank you. You guys have been awesome. It is so humbling, the support you guys have given me over the last, particularly the last couple of months, but really the last year or so. So I will carry on making great videos. You guys carry on tuning in. Tell your friends about this, share it around. But I genuinely, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. You're amazing, and I appreciate it. Take care. Have a good weekend.